that in order to the benefit of the strongman leader and not to the populace of the country. Does that sort of corruption and bribery go on with regard to the Belt and Road?
Absolutely, Chairman. I see this, and I don't mind calling them out, but Captain Torrey and Bukina Faso, as they know that both, whether it's their gold reserves, that is all those proceeds are just in exchange to protect the junta regime. There's a number of examples across. Even in Sudan, what's going on with the Rapid Support Forces and in Burhan.
Very bad to see an adult lying, to see a general officer of a great army lying. It's very serious. First of all, he talked about the gold of Burkina, which is used to protect us. First of all, it's the gold of Burkina. It's not his gold. That's the first thing. What does it look like? It looks like nothing.
President Ibrahim Traore right now is actually having 3 years and 75 days in the office since taking power. I believe that he took it because, according to my view, he meant well for his nation, and that's why he decided to take the power. And since President Traore took an office, this issue has been, a very, very discomfortable situation for the West. Because when President Traore took the office, the first thing that he did, he dismissed the France military from his country, and he actually ensured that the deal that they made with the United States of America was totally disrupted. And this issue has made the West unhappy. We heard recently when Captain Michael of America, who is actually the captain in charge of the American African Command, accused President Traore of misusing the gold reserve. And President Traore is defending himself by saying that when he resumed the office, he found no gold reserves that were left in the central bank of Bukina. And now I want to let you, ladies and gentlemen, understand something very clearly before we dive into details. Ever since President Traore took an office, there has been a significant change in the economic uplifting. And among the things that President Ibrahim Traore has actually achieved is actually based on the economy, infrastructure, cultural identity. And some of the economic growth that President Traore has bumpered into his country, the GDP of Burkina Faso as a country grew from $18.8 billion to $22.1 billion. I don't know if that is a misuse of money or misuse of the gold reserves of the country. And also, President Traore rejected loans from IMF and World Bank, asserting economic sovereignty. He paid off local debts, ensuring fiscal stability. These are some of the achievements of President Traore since he took an office. Another thing, President Traore established the Post Bank of Burkina Faso to reduce reliance to the CFA franc. In short, cutting ties from the financial support from France as a colonial power. In infrastructure, President Traore is constructing West Africa's largest hospital. I don't know what US has to do with Burkina Faso on this. In fact, if US meant well for Africa, they had to thumbs up President Traore's performance since he took the office. President Traore has built a new international airport, Ouagadougou Dossine Airport, with a capacity of 1 million passengers annually. He has upgraded roads and transport network, modernizing Bobo Dioulasso Airport. And also in agriculture, the president has distributed over 400 tractors, 239 trailers, and 710 motor pumps, and also 714 motorcycles to support farmers. Tell me the country in Africa that has done such a remarkable support to the farming community. Our country relies on the import. We import everything from rice, sugar, things that we should be producing within our countries. We import them. And so whenever an African power or government rises up and realizes the means of boosting up the economy, the West has got a problem with that. President Traore established 2 tomato processing plants, making Burkina Faso the first French colonial nation in sub-Saharan Africa to produce tomato concentrate. Look at that. He launched a state-of-the-art gold mine and refinery, processing 150 tons annually. So he's being accused for the gold that he himself reserved. He did not actually misuse it, because when he took the office, he found no reserves in the central bank. And now he made that point of doing the reserve by himself. And so he's being accused by America of having, misused the gold reserves in the central bank by building up his army and military. What is wrong by building your army and military? He increased cotton production and established a national support center for artisanal cotton processing. That is a regional plant. Also, in cultural and judicial reforms, he banned British-style legal wigs and gowns, replacing them with African traditional Bukina attire. We have nothing to do with the British culture and the colonial culture. We Africans, when the colonial era came, when the whites came, they found us having our own culture. So we have to embrace our own culture. I really congratulate President Ibrahim Traore. President Traore has encouraged adoption of local languages and Faso Dan Fani textile. He also promoted cultural identity and sovereignty. On the regional alliances and security, he joined the Alliance of Sahel State, in short AES, with Mali and Niger, strengthened relations with Russia and Turkey. And now that is where the problem comes from. How dare you divorce France, then get to marry Russia and Turkey, China and North Korea? No, that would not be accepted, because you look at the basis by which America is now attacking Burkina Faso, then you get to understand that there is no base. It is kind of trying to bring up something just to entice Burkina Faso and find a means of trying to attack them. And it is good for the West right now to understand that Africans have reached a point whereby we are not going to be colonized anymore. Now, based on what we have just stated or explained, we are going to watch a video of the reply of the president of Burkina Faso towards Michael. I don't know whether it is called Michael Langley or somebody. He is a general in American army, and also black, of which we did not expect the son of Africa trying to ignite war against his own brothers, because we know what Africans go through in the European countries, and we would like to see Africans united so that Africa can become a big economy that will actually compete with the world economy. Let's dive into details as we get to see what happened.
Because everything he said is a lie. It's very bad to see an adult lying, to see a general officer of a great army lying. It's very serious. First of all, he talked about the gold of Burkina, which is used to protect us. First of all, it's the gold of Burkina. It's not his gold. That's the first thing. What does it look like? It looks like nothing. It's Burkina. It's the gold of Burkina. It doesn't look like it. The second thing, he's lying, because Burkina never had gold reserves until we arrived. It was us who started to reserve the gold in Burkina's treasury. Otherwise, there was not a single gram of gold reserve in Burkina. That means he's still a liar. The other thing, when he says that we use it to protect ourselves, we are free. If the people have decided that we govern, we have the duty to protect ourselves. So we are free. How does it look like? And the thing that hurts me the most, not because he's a general or because he's an American, it's because he's black. And it hurts to see that we use a black man to fight a black man, and it hasn't started yet. It has to stop. It's very dangerous. Even Libya. Who destroyed Libya? To use a black man again. In the movies, in the time of the Americans, Black people always played a bad role.
Pourquoi les Noirs doivent continuer à jouer les mauvais rôles?
We know that it's in the movies, but why do black people continue to play a bad role? I think that if he heard this interview, he must look at himself in the mirror. Be ashamed. Come out and say that we made a false report. I regret it. He must say it publicly. If it's a false report, we did it. Because it's possible. It's possible that we made a false report. That he comes out and says, because you followed when I took another neighbor. Again, as I said, a black man. The Minister of Defense of Ivory Coast, who walks around in Turkey, he sees the Minister of Defense of Turkey, and he says to him, we sell weapons. You see how it hurts. When a black man behaves like that, it hurts a lot. Did we make a false report? That he comes out and lies. If we sent him to create a problem in Burkina, as they are used to doing it, well, we're going to get ready. We're going to wait for them. Because it has to stop now. The black race must not be used to fight the blacks. Every time it's the same thing. It's the same thing. And that's what we regret here. It hurt us a lot to see that it's a black man who keeps his word. It's true that they can regret it. Through several channels, they try to catch up. But no, it was said publicly. You have to catch up publicly. That's how it is for us. We are no longer in diplomatic hypocrisy. As we like to say things loud and clear, and come down and say no. We don't apologize. You have to say it publicly. So I invite them to catch up, to say it publicly. Because African youth understood. Black youth in the whole world understood. This manipulation is no longer happening. It has always been the case. We can't use false alibis to hope to reach other goals. It doesn't work anymore. So it's regrettable. But Burkina stays in line. We will continue to develop. He forgot to say everything we do for Burkina. What we do, no regime has done it. The social and economic development of Burkina. We are building a lot of health centers, equipped with equipment, medical exams, and lower the cost of medical exams. Which regime did the same? No one. We are working on agriculture, free labor. Our production has increased. Who did it? No one. The army that we are creating, a new army. The Burkina army has never been as equipped as now. Who did it? No regime. In terms of employment, no regime has created as many jobs as we did. Industrialization. Maybe that's what hurts them, that they want to stop it. We have to make up lies. I invite them to review their copies. That's what I can say. It's a big lie, and it's regrettable.
Africa is no stranger to the machinations of imperialist powers. But when US General Michael Langley, head of AFRICOM, dared to sling baseless accusations at Burkina Faso's revolutionary leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, he ignited a fire that has swept across the continent like a harmattan wind. In early April, during a US Senate committee hearing, Langley claimed Traoré was misusing Burkina Faso's gold reserves for personal gain, a slanderous lie that sought to tarnish the image of a man who has become the beating heart of Africa's anti-imperialist resurgence. What the West did not anticipate was the thunderous response from Africans, not just in Burkina Faso, but from Accra to Addis Ababa, from Lagos to London's diaspora strongholds. The people rose, their voices united in a resounding cry, "Hands off Traoré! Hands off Africa!" This is no mere protest movement, it is a continental awakening, a rejection of centuries of exploitation and a bold declaration that Africa will no longer tolerate foreign meddling in its affairs. From the bustling streets of Ouagadougou to the vibrant markets of Nairobi, Africans have taken to the streets, their placards aloft, their chants reverberating. Traoré is Africa's hope. The West, blindsided by this unity, scrambles to make sense of a continent that refuses to bow. African leaders, long accustomed to navigating the tightrope of Western approval, watch in stunned silence as their people rally behind a 37-year-old captain who embodies the spirit of Thomas Sankara and the dreams of a free Africa. This is the story of a people's rebellion, a love letter to a leader who dares to defy, and a warning to those who underestimate the power of a united Africa. On April 3, 2025, General Michael Langley sat before the US Senate and uttered words that would prove to be a grave miscalculation. He accused Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso's interim president, of diverting the nation's gold reserves to protect the junta regime rather than for the welfare of his people. The accusation was not just false, It was a deliberate attempt to undermine a leader who has dared to challenge the West's stranglehold on Africa. Langley's words, dripping with the arrogance of empire, echoed the tired playbook of imperialist propaganda: smear, destabilize and depose. But Africa was listening, and Africa was ready to respond. Within hours, social media platforms across the continent erupted. From X to TikTok, hashtags like #HandsOffTraoré and #HouseAfricaStandsWithIB trended as young Africans, armed with smartphones and righteous anger, called out the US for its hypocrisy. The same America that plundered Iraq and Libya now dares to lecture us about our resources, tweeted on Tita, a Kenyan activist whose post garnered thousands of retweets. In Burkina Faso, the government swiftly condemned Langley's remarks as regrettable and gravely inaccurate. But it was the people who took the fight to the streets. On April 30th, Ouagadougou's Place de la Révolution became a sea of green, red and black, the colours of Burkina Faso's flag, as tens of thousands gathered in one of the largest pro-junta rallies since Traoré seized power in September 2022. Demonstrators waved giant posters of their leader, clad in his signature fatigues, and hoisted banners declaring, "Down with imperialism and its local lackeys." Musician Oshibi Yohan, a protester at the rally, told the Associated Press, "Because Colin Powell lied, Iraq was destroyed. Barack Obama lied, Gaddafi was killed. But this time, their lies won't affect us." His words captured the sentiment of a generation that has witnessed the devastation wrought by Western interventions and refuses to let Burkina Faso become another Libya. But this was not just Burkina Faso's fight. The protests spread like wildfire, igniting solidarity movements across Africa and its diaspora. In Ghana, the socialist movement organised demonstrations under the banner "Hands Off the AES", a nod to the alliance of Sahel states, comprising Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger. In Liberia, Sekou Ansumariam Dukali, a young activist, travelled to Ouagadougou to join the protests, declaring, "I came to participate in this demonstration because Captain Traoré represents hope for Africa, hope for black people, hope for all freedom fighters around the globe." In Nigeria, 2 protesters were charged with inciting public disturbance for organising a pro-Traoré procession, yet their resolve remained unshaken. From Accra to Montego Bay, from London to Bamako, Africans stood up, their voices a chorus of defiance. To understand why Africans have rallied so fiercely behind Captain Ibrahim Traoré, one must look beyond the headlines and into the heart of a continent yearning for sovereignty. At 37, Traoré is not just a military leader. He is a symbol of resistance, a living embodiment of the Pan-Africanist ideals championed by Kwame Nkrumah, Patrice Lumumba and Thomas Sankara. His rise to power in 2022, following a coup against Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Damiba, was rooted in a promise to address Burkina Faso's worsening security crisis and reclaim the nation's dignity from neo-colonial exploitation. Unlike his predecessors, Traoré has delivered. Under his leadership, Burkina Faso has taken bold steps to assert its independence. He expelled French military forces, terminated exploitative agreements, and rejected the CFA franc, a currency seen by many as a lingering shackle of French colonialism. Traoré redirected national wealth toward grassroots development, investing in education, healthcare, and food security despite illegal sanctions and external pressure. His nationalization of Burkina Faso's gold mines, a move that has earned him both plaudits and enemies, ensures that the country's resources benefit its people, not foreign corporations. These actions resonate deeply with a continent that has seen its wealth siphoned off for centuries while its people languish in poverty. Traoré's rhetoric is equally powerful. Clad in fatigues and fluent in the language of revolution, he channels the spirit of Sankara, Burkina Faso's legendary leader, who was assassinated in a French-backed coup in 1987. Traoré has erected a new statue of Sankara at the site of his assassination, a symbolic act that reaffirms his commitment to the ideals of self-reliance and Pan-African unity. In viral TikTok edits, young Africans hail him as Africa's messiah and the people's captain, depicting him leading imaginary armies to topple Western empires. Captions like "France must fall" reflect the anti-imperialist fervour that Traoré has ignited. For many Africans, Traoré represents a break from the old guard of leaders who have too often served as puppets of the West. "He's one of us," said Amina Coulibaly, a 24-year-old student in Bamako, Mali, who joined a pro-Traoré rally. "He speaks our language, he feels our pain, and he's not afraid to stand up to those who've been looting our continent for centuries." This sentiment is echoed by the youth, who make up the majority of Africa's population and see in Traoré a leader who understands their frustrations with unemployment, inequality, and foreign domination. His charisma, youth, and unapologetic stance have turned him into a digital messiah, with AI-generated images and deepfake anthems amplifying his mythos online. But Traoré's appeal is not just emotional, it is practical. In a region plagued by jihadist insurgencies, he has prioritized security, drawing on his experience as an artillery officer in counter-terrorism operations. While critics point to ongoing violence in Burkina Faso's northeast, supporters argue that Traoré inherited a dire situation exacerbated by years of Western-backed mismanagement. His pivot toward Russia for security partnerships following the expulsion of French troops is seen as a pragmatic move to counter jihadist threats without compromising sovereignty. For Africans tired of seeing their countries used as pawns in geopolitical chess games, Traoré's defiance is a breath of fresh air. The protests sparked by Langley's accusations were not just a defense of Traoré, they were a rejection of the West's enduring arrogance. In Ouagadougou, the April 30th rally was a spectacle of unity, with Burkinabe of all ages chanting, "Long live Captain Traoré," alongside Russian and Burkinabe flags, a nod to the shifting alliances in the Sahel. The demonstration was one of the largest since Traoré's coup, fueled by outrage over the US general's remarks and reports of a foiled coup attempt allegedly orchestrated from Ivory Coast. Burkina Faso's security minister Mahamadou Sana described the plot as an effort to sow total chaos and reverse the country's revolutionary path. The people's response was clear: they would be Traoré's shield. Across Africa, the protests took on a life of their own. In Ghana, grassroots organizations marched in solidarity, denouncing foreign interference and praising Traoré's leadership. In Liberia, demonstrators carried placards reading, "Traoré is our Sankara." In Nigeria, despite state crackdowns, young activists organized processions, risking arrest to show their support. The diaspora, too, played a pivotal role. In London, Burkinabe and other Africans gathered outside the US Embassy, their banners proclaiming, "Africa's resources are not your playthings." In Montego Bay, Jamaica, a small but spirited rally echoed the call for African sovereignty. These protests were not just about Traoré, they were a demand for respect, a refusal to let Africa's future be dictated by foreign capitals. The digital realm amplified this uprising. On Facebook, posts like Joe Bassey's declaration, people across the globe have staged protests in solidarity with Captain Ibrahim Traoré following reports of a coup attempt went viral, garnering thousands of likes and shares. Sea-Finnish Public called the protests a global uprising, urging France, the US and NATO to keep their hands off Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger. Esheru Kwaku's post, "Africa doesn't need the world needs Africa," struck a chord, reminding Africans of their continent's wealth and potential. These voices, unfiltered and unapologetic, transformed the protests into a global movement, one that the West could neither ignore nor control. The chaos was not in the protests themselves, which were largely peaceful, but in the disruption they caused to the Western narrative. For too long, the West has assumed it could dictate Africa's destiny, propping up compliant leaders and toppling those who dared to defy. Traoré's Burkina Faso, alongside Mali and Niger, has shattered that illusion. The alliance of Sahel states, formed after these nations quit ECOWAS, represents a new vision of African integration, one that prioritizes sovereignty over subservience. The protests, with their anti-imperialist slogans and pan-Africanist fervor, sent a clear message. Africa is no longer a playground for Western powers. The West was caught off guard by the scale and intensity of the protests. In Washington, Langley's remarks were likely intended as a routine jab, a way to justify AFRICOM's presence in Africa and counter Russia's growing influence. Instead, they backfired spectacularly. US policymakers, accustomed to African compliance, were stunned by the outpouring of support for Traoré. "This is unprecedented," admitted a State Department official, speaking anonymously to Reuters. "We expected pushback from Burkina Faso, but not this level of continental solidarity." The protests exposed the fragility of Western influence in Africa, a continent increasingly skeptical of promises of democracy and development that have delivered little but debt and dependency. France, in particular, felt the sting. President Emmanuel Macron, who once described Traoré as part of a Baroque alliance with Russian and Chinese neo-imperialists, was notably silent as the protests unfolded. France's expulsion from Bukina Faso in 2023, followed by similar moves in Mali and Niger, has left Paris scrambling to maintain its relevance in the Sahel. The sight of Burkinabe protesters burning French flags while waving Russian ones was a bitter pill for a nation that once saw West Africa as its backyard. The protests also highlighted France's hypocrisy. While Macron lectures Africa on sovereignty, French companies continue to profit from the continent's resources, often at the expense of local communities. African leaders, meanwhile, found themselves in an uncomfortable position. Many, reliant on Western aid and investment, have avoided openly endorsing Traoré's radical agenda. Yet the protests revealed a growing disconnect between these leaders and their people. In Ivory Coast, accused by Burkina Faso of harbouring coup plotters, President Alassane Ouattara faced criticism for his perceived alignment with Western interests. In Ghana, former President Nana Akufo-Addo's earlier accusations of Traoré harbouring Russian mercenaries strained relations. Yet the solidarity protests in Accra showed that ordinary Ghanaians sided with Burkina Faso's leader. Across the continent, leaders who have thrived on Western patronage watched nervously as their citizens celebrated a man who rejects such dependence. The Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF, in South Africa were a notable exception, boldly rejecting Langley's accusations and praising Traoré's efforts to reclaim Burkina Faso's gold for its people. "We condemn the West's continued interference in African nations' affairs," the EFF declared on X, reaffirming Africa's sovereign right to control its resources. Their stance resonated with young Africans, who see Traoré as a model for leaders who prioritize their people over foreign interests. The protests are more than a defense of one man. They are a battle for Africa's soul. For too long, the continent has been a chessboard for global powers, its resources plundered, its people marginalized, its leaders co-opted. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, flaws and all, represents a rejection of that status quo. His vision of a sovereign, self-reliant Africa, free from the chains of neo-colonialism, has struck a chord with a generation that refuses to accept the world as it is. Critics, particularly in the West, paint Traoré as an authoritarian, pointing to his suspension of political parties and crackdowns on dissent. Human rights groups have raised concerns about abuses by Burkina Faso's armed forces in counterinsurgency operations. These criticisms deserve scrutiny, and no leader is above accountability. But for many Africans, the West's sudden concern for human rights rings hollow. Where was this outrage when Western-backed regimes committed atrocities? Where was the condemnation when France propped up dictators in exchange for resource contracts? Traoré's supporters argue that his measures, however imperfect, are a necessary response to a country under siege, by jihadists, by sanctions, and by foreign plots. The love for Traoré is not blind adoration, it is a recognition of what he represents. He is a reminder that Africa's destiny lies in African hands. His policies, from nationalizing gold mines to investing in grassroots development, challenge the narrative that Africa cannot thrive without Western guidance. His defiance of France and the US inspires a continent to imagine a future where its resources fuel its own progress, not the profits of foreign corporations. His youth and energy resonate with a demographic that is tired of being told to wait for change.
I'm not a Bukina by citizenship, but I support so much President Ibrahim Traoré. I know that people might argue that, this man is a dictator, he took the government through the military coup. Fine. The most important thing that leaders should get to understand is the service to the people. That is the most important. It doesn't matter whether you comes from the west, you comes from the east, you comes from the south, north. It doesn't matter. We all need to see our children go to school. We all need to see medicines and doctors in the hospital. We all need to see our nations embarking on empowering agricultural sector, that we are able to produce food enough to feed our country. We all want to see the infrastructures, roads. We want to see schools. We want to see hospitals. We want to see the nation growing. That is the most important. We want to see the young mind empowered. You can imagine buying all these tractors for the farmers, and buying trailers and buying motorcycles. That is simply called empowering the farming sector. And that is what most of the leaders have failed to do in Africa. Some have been in power for more than 40 years. They have done nothing. This guy is becoming a threat because it is kind of, Africans are beginning to learn that indeed there are people that are not good politicians, but they can perform. And President Traore might be a serious threat because, he took the power through coup, and now the African presidents are scared that somebody might, go the same direction. Actually, we just need service to the people. That is all that we need, because citizens are paying taxes. Some even, work so hard. They sweat to pay tax. Some are serving jail sentences for not having paid their taxes. And so, guys, my request is that this should be a reform to the African system of government, and we should believe and understand that, look, we need to find leaders who are serving the people. I congratulate President Traore, and also I would remember to congratulate President Kagame of Rwanda. A great job down there. The guy is really serving his people. I have no problem. Personally, I do not have a great problem with, staying longer in power. To me, it is not a big deal. But now the question is, yes, you stayed long in power, but what have you done? What significant changes have you brought to your country? President Xi of China has stayed in power for a very long time. But you can see the Chinese revolution. It is one of the revolution of greatest time, economically, politically. China is growing very sharp. And when you look at the graph of the Chinese GDP, it is ever rising. That is what we need. Even if we can have one president in Africa who is able to serve the entire Africa with, developing Africa, making Africa great and making Africa, empowered, that is the greatest thing that we want. I am not a Bukina, but I support President Traore. And guys, I would like you to drop a comment on the comment section and tell us what you think about this. I believe the West should stay away from President Traore, and President Traore should continue serving the people of Burkina Faso, because it is now the time for Burkina Faso to rise. I would urge my brothers from Burkina Faso that you are the security of the president. You are the people who should stand by the president and ensure that the president is safe. If you think that President Traore is doing a great job in Burkina Faso, please remember to leave a comment at the comment section, and always remember to like, share and subscribe so that you help us to grow. See you next time. God bless you.